With me now is Mehmet Celik, a good friend of the channel. He's the managing editor at the Turkish newspaper, the Daily Sabah. Mehmet, always a pleasure having you on. You and I, we've done this for a number of years, but it seems the meaning is still very strong for 80+ million Turks. 6 years ago, you were still at the institution where you currently work, at the Daily Sabah. Explain to us what the atmosphere was like in the ensuing days in terms of explaining this as an English publication to the world. What exactly happened to Türkiye and who Fetullah Gülen is? Because most, if not all, the world outside of Türkiye really didn't know who this man was.
You know, it is true they didn't know who this man was, but at the same time, it wasn't just that they didn't know who he was, but they also knew him very wrong, in a wrong way, I think, because he was able to cover his group very well beyond their actual intentions. He was able to portray himself and his group beyond something that they do, and they have different aims. What was the challenge for us at the time was that, first of all, many in the West heard about Feto or this group on July 15. Mm-hmm. So it was a challenge for us to tell them about the 40 years of their past, but this wasn't the only challenge. Another challenge, and I think the stronger challenge, was to explain their true faces and their true intentions against a Western media that is biased against Turkey and is willing to and is trying to portray a terrorist group as something that they are not. So we didn't have just the challenge of informing people, that this was a challenge on its own, but at the same time, Turkish media and Turkish journalists work against Western media that was very biased against Turkey and how Turkey is fighting against a terrorist group. And this is not the first time, actually, because Turkish media and Turkey in general has a challenge to express themselves or to explain themselves when it comes to fight against terrorism. Mm-hmm. I mean, Turkey has been fighting PKK terrorism for a long time. Turkey has been fighting them at different levels within border and beyond border. But at the same time, Turkey is also fighting against a narrative, fighting against a discourse of terrorism, how it is understood, how it is portrayed by the West, be it at political level or be it from the journalists. I mean, when we're talking about YPG, for example, the PKK terrorism, Turkey has been fighting them on the field and fighting them at a political level, fighting them at a diplomatic level, but at the same time, YPG is supported by the West. Mm-hmm. So it is not just a one-layer challenge.
It is, but I mean, but the main party, when linked to the YPG, the PKK, the U.S. recognizes it as a terrorist organization. The European Union recognizes it as a terrorist organization. Like you said, there were many that were completely oblivious to Fetullah Gülen before the events of July 15, 2016, let alone having any association with terrorism. You talked about the bias of the Western media. I specifically want to ask you this. I mean, out of all the threats that Turkey faces, I think Fetullah Gülen and Feto is perhaps the one that Turkey has had the most difficult time in terms of explaining to the West because of particular reasons, which you touched on. Why do you think that is, though?
Well, when it comes to fight against terrorism, for example, fight against PKK is not something that is as difficult at a societal level. When it comes to fighting against YPG, it's not as difficult. But when it comes to Feto, a terrorist organization that has been working to establish itself, to develop itself, and to maintain itself in the eyes of society at something that they're not, it is hard to fight that and make people believe that this is a fight against terrorism when it comes to the Western view of Turkey. And on the other level, when we look at the organization itself, I think it's, you can almost tell through their words who is a PKK terrorist, who is a PKK supporter. But when it comes to Feto members and Feto suspects or fugitives, it is not as easy because they have been able to hide themselves. I mean, this is how the network has been able to successfully establish itself through hiding themselves, through hiding their true intentions, through portraying themselves as something, as an organization or as an entity that they are not. And I mean, they were very famous through their educational institutions, right? Whereas all these activities were facilitated or organized to serve their ultimate aim and ultimate target, and that being Turkish democracy.
Mehmet, it's a pleasure listening to the story from somebody who's covered it for years and a seasoned journalist. Thank you very much for joining us here on this special coverage. Thank you.